just made the list.
The doctor will see you now.
I'm better than you, and you know it.
Hello and welcome to Around the Ring. I am one of your hosts, Steve, and with me, as always, is Justin. How are you doing today, Justin?
Pretty good. A little tired, but I'm here.
Yeah, I'm a little tired myself. I had a marathon band rehearsal today. So this is episode 263, and today we've got quite a bit to talk about. We've got some wrestling that happened over the week. We've got a couple of events. One of them is a pay-per-view, and one of them is what is referred to as a monthly special. Not quite a pay-per-view, although you kind of have to pay to watch it. So I'm not sure why it's not called a pay-per-view. But anyway, before we start off, if you want to follow Around the Ring on social media, we're on Twitter at Around the Ring OK. And we've got a Facebook page as well. It's been a while since I've been on that. So let me, real quick, let me double check the URL for that one. It's probably the same thing. Yeah, it's Around the Ring OK. And then if you want to follow us on Twitter, I'm at Otter272. And Justin, where are you at?
You can follow me at JuiceFaceKilla. That's pretty much everywhere on like Twitter and Instagram. But you can also follow the Punk Lotto podcast. I tweet a lot from there as well. Yeah.
So in addition to Around the Ring, we got a couple other projects that we do. Justin has the Punk Lotto pod. Why don't you talk about that briefly?
Yeah, sure. I guess we haven't really described that. It's actually how we have met each other. It's through that, thanks to that show. Punk Lotto Pod. It's a show I co-host with my brother Dylan. The premise of our show is we assign our guests a year, and they choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk adjacent album from that year for us to talk about. We usually have a guest on, but if not, sometimes it's just Dylan and I. We've been doing it for 3 years as of August. We're coming up on our 150th episode. And it's been fun.
Very cool. Yeah. My other podcast is it started out as basically a Star Wars podcast, but we've kind of branched out into other areas of pop culture. So I guess it's just kind of a pop culture podcast now. And it is called Rogue One Radio. So that's a lot of fun. We actually live stream every Tuesday on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. So if you guys are a bunch of geeks out there and want to watch something other than wrestling, if you're into the whole pop culture thing, Star Wars and Marvel and DC and all that good stuff, go ahead and go check it out. But today we are talking wrestling. That's the whole purpose of Around the Ring. So we've got a few headlines to mention. You want to start us off there?
Sure. We'll dip our toes into WWE land. Even though you and I don't watch it, it's still worth noting some big things that happen. This past Monday night on Raw, if you follow all the wrestling podcasts, you're probably very well aware of this. Big E cashed in his Money in the Bank championship against Bobby Lashley and won the WWE championship.
Yeah, that was cool. I'm glad he finally getting another push. I remember when he first came out, and he was one of my favorites on that show, and yeah, it's good to see he got his due.
Yeah, it's about time. He follows his New Day tag team partner, Kofi Kingston, as the second member to become a WWE champion. It's exciting. I saw a lot of really positive reactions to it this week online.
That's good.
One, it being, a really cool moment to have for a group of people who don't tend to get recognized by the WWE too often in the championship circuit. But Big E is I believe it's the first black champion to pass from black champion to black champions. Went from Bobby Lashley to Big E, so that's exciting and a unique little piece of history there.
Well, and NXT got a new sort of new champion. It returned to somebody. There was a fatal 4-way in NXT for the championship following the relinquishing of the title by Samoa Joe, who gave up his title due to health issues. So there was a 4-way between Tommaso Ciampa. Oh man, who else was in that 4-way? It was
Pete Dunne.
Pete Dunne, right?
LA Knight.
Yeah, and when I saw him, I was like, "Who is that?" And then I looked it up, and I'm like, "Oh, it's Eli Drake." So
yeah, and I'm blanking
kind of out of his element in NXT, but yeah, who was the fourth one? The fourth one was
it was a new guy, wasn't it? Oh man, so unprofessional of us to not know the answer right now.
Well, we don't watch NXT.
It's true. It was going to be Kyle O'Reilly, but I don't think he was actually in the match. Was he?
I'm Googling it now. I actually cannot remember. No, it was Kyle O'Reilly.
Okay, he was actually in the match. Okay.
Yeah.
They did their whole new rollout of NXT 2.0 with all their new wrestlers and set and everything.
Right. After
a lot of different people.
Take over by Vince, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's back with Tommaso Ciampa,
which is a good move, I think. I think if they would have pivoted quickly to a brand new person, it would be a little too soon.
Weird, yeah.
Ciampa's run was always really entertaining. His heel Ciampa was a really great take on that character, especially when you're talking about Goldie.
Goldie. Yeah, Daddy's home. But yeah, I wasn't terribly surprised when I heard who won it. It would have been kind of cool to see Kyle win it, but well, speaking of Kyle O'Reilly, his former tag team partner Bobby Fish, who of course was released from WWE. Is going to MLW. It was announced. He's going to Major League Wrestling, and he is going to be, as far as I know, he's going to be participating in the Opera Cup.
Yeah. They finished. They finished announcing all the entrants into the Opera Cup. We have eight competitors. We can run down here. We have TJP, Calvin Tankman, Matt Cross, Bobby Fish, Lee Moriarty, Davey Richards, and Alex Shelley. Oh, and I forgot Tom Lawler.
Tom Lawler, yeah. The only name there I don't recognize is Calvin Tankman.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with that name. I know it from MLW, but I've never watched any of his work.
And I admittedly don't watch MLW, so I don't know really anything about that promotion. I've read a couple of things about it on Twitter and whatnot, but generally speaking, I don't really know a whole lot about it. Never watched any of it.
It's a really unique promotion because they've managed to combine a lot of lucha libre alongside more MMA influenced wrestlers, which I believe that's where Tom Lawler came from. I think he was an MMA guy.
Now, didn't MJF wrestle for them for a little bit?
He did. That was probably his first big national exposure. Was MLW. I think there's a few other. I think Top Flight. Dante Martin's brother currently wrestles for MLW.
Okay.
And Lee Moriarty, of course, just signed with AEW. So there's there's a little bit of a working relationship there between MLW and
sure
AEW.
Yeah, it looks like the uppercut might be pretty interesting. I'll have to see if I can catch any of those matches.
Yeah, I was happy to see Matt Cross's name in there. He's a guy who kind of got lost in the shuffle of the AEW Ring of Honor kind of explosion that sort of happened. I think he was part of All In the Battle Royal, maybe, or a ladder match of some sort, but never really signed with anybody.
No, he didn't sign with AEW, and now MLW is pretty much other than running around on the independent circuit.
Mm-hmm.
MLB is his only thing, so it'd be good to see him do something. So our last headline is regarding a TV show, I guess you can call that, called Dark Side of the Ring. And I didn't watch the episode, but I have seen a lot of chatter on social media about it and the ramifications and everything that came about because of that episode. Some pretty, I'd like to say shocking things, but at this point, nothing really shocks me anymore as far as.
It's funny. So the episode was specifically about the plane ride from hell, which is kind of an infamous story in wrestling circles about kind of the tall tale version of the story was just that it was a flight where everybody got really drunk and all sorts of antics happened. And so like a lot of stories came out, like Michael Hayes' ponytail getting cut by X-Pac and Kurt Hennig and Brock Lesnar wrestling each other into the walls of the airplane. Like it was kind of like passed around as this like funny, goofy story. But this Dark Side of the Ring, which it's a Dark Side of the Ring special, kind of revealed a lot of things that people didn't know. Some of this information was out there, but I'd say the general public wasn't super aware of it. But a lot of accusations lobbed towards Ric Flair, Scott Hall, and Brock Lesnar primarily. They tend to get the brunt of it. And Tommy Dreamer as well made some remarks in that special that wound up getting himself suspended from Impact Wrestling.
Yeah.
It was rough. It was a rough one to watch. Kind of going into it, I wondered if Ric Flair would suffer really any consequences, and his deal with Car Shield was just put on hold as well. So it is affecting his money. You have to think it'll probably affect his chances of appearing in AEW.
Probably. Yeah.
He most likely is not going to be showing up anytime soon there, unless he does any amends there. But which he is saying did not happen. So he's going that route. But yeah, some rough stuff from people. It's interesting because Dark Side of the Ring tends to go into some really dark stories, but a good chunk of the stories are from about people who aren't alive anymore.
Yeah.
So this is one of those ones where it's like, no, these people are still around and active.
Yeah. Did not paint a good light on Rick and the others. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about, Scott Hall and Ric Flair notoriously had substance abuse issues. So there's something to be said about that, but at the same time, it doesn't really excuse some of their actions.
Right.
Yeah. It's pretty difficult watch, honestly. Only watch it if you can really, handle kind of upsetting stories, but, hopefully some good can come of this. Hopefully this holds some accountability towards men in the wrestling industry going forward. And it's needed as much as it's painful to hear some of these things. It's useful to grow.
Right. All right. Well, that's all we had for headlines this week. Let's go ahead and talk about some highlights that happened over the course of the week in wrestling. We want to start with Death Before Dishonor.
Yeah, that seems to be the oldest news this week. So last week while we were recording, Ring of Honor held their pay-per-view Death Before Dishonor. I heard good things about a couple matches that happened on that show. Most notably was the Ring of Honor Women's Championship match between Roxy and Miranda Alizé. This was to crown the first Ring of Honor Women's Champion. They have had Women's Championship in the past, but this one's like a new title, a new lineage. I think it was called like Women of Honor was the last Women's Championship they had. Basically, this is a brand new attempt by Ring of Honor to expand into women's wrestling. And man, this match, it might be my favorite match of the week, but there's another match that happened yesterday that might top it. But this match was fantastic. I was unfamiliar with both of these women. Roxy, I believe, is 19 years old. And she is already an amazing talent. I believe they both trained at Booker T's school in Texas. It was just a really, really good technical wrestling match. It was, I think Ring of Honor's kind of built their name in this last year on like the pure wrestling championship and that kind of more mat-based style. Over the last year, and this women's match kind of fits in that lane. And these are two women that I'm definitely going to be watching what they do going forward because they impressed me so much, especially coming from people I'd never heard of before. I highly recommend if you can get a hold of its match, watch it. I think you'll be very impressed with these two women, and Ring of Honor has a good head start on this new division.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm gonna have to try to catch that because I didn't get a chance to watch any ROH this week. Other things going on. Let's see what else we've got. Let's save our AEW stuff toward the end.
Okay.
Yesterday, Impact Wrestling had it's what it calls a monthly special. They don't call it a pay-per-view. However, if you want to watch it, you do have to pay. You either need to pay to be an Impact Insider, which is a thing on YouTube, or you have to pay for the Impact Plus app. So it's not a pay-per-view, but you still have to pay. If you're watching Impact, you have to pay anyway because you have to have cable.
Right.
But yeah, I'm an insider on YouTube, so that's how I watched it. I was able to watch it live, and the Impact Insider membership allows you to watch all of the weekly shows that come out. What is it, Thursday, and then it lets you watch all of the monthly specials, but you still have to pay for the pay-per-views. So, not surprisingly. So the next pay-per-view we've got coming up for them is Bound for Glory in October. That'll be in Las Vegas. And one match has already been announced for that. It's kind of the fallout of yesterday's Victory Road is what it was called. And overall, it was a decent show. There were really only a couple of standout matches. The championship match was really good. That was between Christian Cage, of course, retaining his title against Ace Austin. And that was a good match. It was probably, I want to say it was probably about 20 minutes long, so not super long. And there were some shenanigans going on in there. Madman Fulton, who is Ace Austin's kind of muscle enforcer type guy, he was actually kicked out of the ring or kicked out of the arena, whatever you want to call it, for trying to get involved in the match. And then toward the end, he actually snuck in while the ref wasn't looking and tried some more shenanigans on Christian Cage. And that kind of fell flat because Christian Cage ended up taking Austin down with the kill switch. So it was a good match. Matt Cardona had a match against Rohit Raju, which I think my expectations were probably a little too high for this one. But it was good. It was a decent match. It was a no DQ match, and it was pretty violent. They had Matt Cardona's kind of trying to show his hardcore side, I guess. And, there was a lot of props brought in. So that was a decent match. As far as I'd say maybe my favorite match, although the Christian Cage and Ace Austin match was probably pretty close too. But I think my favorite match might have been Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan versus Moose and W. Morrissey. There was a pretty interesting storyline leading up to this match, and it was just a good match overall. There was a lot of back and forth. You just didn't really have a good idea who was going to end up winning that one. And then there was something that happened. Eddie Edwards' girlfriend, valet, whatever you want to call her. Can't remember her name now.
Alicia Edwards?
Yeah. She came into the ring, or came into the not in the ring, came into the arena studio, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And W. Morrissey actually pulled her into the ring and gave her a pile driver. And that, of course, you would have thought that was going to set Eddie Edwards off. But what actually happened is he pulled her out of the ring and left the arena. So Sami Callihan was by himself for the last few minutes of the match. And of course he had to take both W. Morrissey and Moose on, and he couldn't do it. And he lost by pinfall, but overall it was a good match. There was a match that got a lot of hype, and then post-match, it got a lot of hype too. There were comments in the chat and other places about how it was, the match of the night, and it was a 6-star match and all this. And I remember seeing those comments, and then I remember thinking, was I watching the same match? It was good. I don't remember it being great or match of the night by any standards. So I ended up going back today and watching it again. And then again, I was like, it's a good match. Not anything phenomenal, but at least in my opinion. But that was for the X Division Championship. That was Chris Sabin and Josh Alexander. And Josh Alexander retained. Actually, as far as the entire night, no title changes were made. Everybody retained. But it was a good match. It was, Josh Alexander versus Chris Sabin's a good matchup and good match. I wouldn't say it was the match of the night, but the fallout of that match and bleeding into Bound for Glory is Josh Alexander is exercising what they call option C, and he is challenging Christian Cage for the Impact Championship at Bound for Glory.
Looking at this card, the Josh Alexander and Saban match would have been the one I was most interested in seeing. Because I know those guys do really good work, and plus the X Division is kind of known for being.
Yeah, I mean, it was good work, and it was a good match. It just wasn't. I wouldn't say it was the match of the night, but it was a good match. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing him up against Christian Cage.
I didn't watch this show, but looking at the card, there are a few names that I recognize from my local wrestling promotion, PWX. Most notably, John Schuyler, who was in the 6-Way Scramble.
Yeah.
See.
That match seemed kind of chaotic to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scramble.
Yeah, it was really hard to keep track of what was going on.
There's 6 people in that match, a couple luchadors, Laredo Kid, Black Taurus. I mean, I imagine it was a fast-paced match. It wasn't very long, which is interesting.
It wasn't very long, no. There was a women's tag match.
That was the other one I was going to mention. Savannah Evans. She also wrestles quite frequently in this area, and I've seen her live once or twice before, and she's quite good. I like her a lot.
It was a decent match.
It was like the shortest one on the card, though.
Yeah. The other women's match was I keep wanting to call her Emma, but it's not Emma anymore. Tennille Dashwood. Tennille Dashwood versus Taylor Wilde. And Tennille lost that one. But in another, it was. Oh, I mean, all of the matches were decent and good matches. I think the standouts for me were the championship match and the tag between Moose and W. Morrissey and Sammy Callahan and Eddie Kingston. Oh, there was also a tag championship match, which this was actually one of them that I was looking most forward to. And again, good match. Just, I think my expectations may have been too high. That was the Good Boys versus Willie Mack and Rich Swann. Good match. Good Boys retained. Like I said, nobody lost their titles.
Yeah, you have to wonder how long the Good Brothers are going to stick around in Impact, especially now that Don Callis is also he's no longer involved in the creative side of things. I don't believe anymore.
Yeah.
So
they keep showing up on AEW too, so they're probably going to spend a little bit more time over there.
Yeah,
I would imagine. But that was Victory Road. You got a couple matches to talk about from the G1.
Yeah. So New Japan started the G1 tournament, which is the round robin tournament. We discussed briefly last week. We talked about it.
Yeah.
Night 1 happened on Friday night. Well, it's like Saturday morning here, and then they're like 18 hours ahead of us in time zones. But it was the first round of the A block matches. In years past, I have watched every single G1 match. My schedule's a little bit more convoluted now, so I can't quite watch everything. I did see a couple, though. Looking at it, I'll just run down real quick. Yujiro Takahashi defeated Kota Ibushi, which was a shocker. Would not have expected that at all. The Great Okan defeated Tangaloa, and Toru Yano defeated Kenta. And like most Toru Yano matches, it was full of shenanigans. But the two matches on top were the definite highlights of the show. Both very excellent matches for very different styles. First, it was Zack Sabre Jr. going up against Tetsuya Naito. And if you remember last week, I said Naito was my favorite active male wrestler.
Yep.
And this was not the type of match he typically wrestles. Though it makes sense because it is a Zack Sabre Jr. type match. Very mat-based technical wrestling. I used to very much dislike Zack Sabre Jr.'s particular style of wrestling.
Yeah.
There was something about it that I didn't like. It didn't look real enough to me for this type of wrestling. But over time, I've definitely become more of a fan. Like, I've seen more of his matches, and he looks better. Honestly, he looks better than he ever has before. This match was definitely his style of match. The story of the match was that he was focused on Naito's knee, which I'm assuming is going to play into the story to the rest of the G1 for Naito. Yeah. You have to think all of his opponents are going to be going for the knee. Zack Sabre Jr. wound up getting the win, which is very impressive for him. You know, Naito won the championship. Naito's multi-time IWGP World Heavyweight Champion at this point, and the first dual champion within the Intercontinental Championship. So that's quite an accomplishment for him and his career. Very, very enjoyable. If you like scientific wrestling, mat-based wrestling, this is definitely one to check out.
Yeah. Definitely worth checking out, though. Yeah.
And the main event of that night was Tomohiro Ishii versus Shingo Takagi. And this is the type of match that these guys are known for. So Shingo Takagi is the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion currently. And this was a good, stiff, hard-hitting match. Like so many of Ishii's matches, he's one of the hardest hitters in New Japan. It's I guess it's typically the style that tends to be associated with the Never Openweight Championship. But considering both of these men have both been Never Openweight champions in the past, so this is definitely going to be in that lane. This is probably my favorite match of the week. It was hard-hitting, fast-paced at points, but it is a New Japan match, so it was almost 28 minutes long. It's I genuinely love Shingo and Ishii. I think they're two of the best talents that company has.
Yeah. Shingo actually was ranked in number 9 in the Pro Wrestling Illustrated 500 this year.
Yeah, it's exciting because I honestly did not see him becoming the World Heavyweight Champion in New Japan. The pandemic may have been the deciding factor on that, considering so many wrestlers were limited in their ability. He is the one who won the championship after Will Ospreay was stripped of it after he went back to England to recover from an injury.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they had a little bit of limited choice in people who could win the championship. And honestly, it makes me happy, though, because, like, maybe he never would have become World Heavyweight Champion. I always saw him maybe only hitting, like, the Intercontinental level or the Never, where he held that title for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy for him. I love Shingo. I think he's one of the best wrestlers in Los Ingobernables and New Japan. So, yeah, it's exciting. I'm curious to see who's going to be the one to take it off of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely my favorite match of the week, I think.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, that brings us to our AEW talk. Did you get a chance to watch either of the Darks?
No, I leave that to you.
Okay. So Dark Elevation was there was only a couple of matches really that kind of stood out to me. There was Daniel Garcia against Lee Moriarty, and that was a good match. I don't know if you've seen Lee Moriarty wrestle in AEW yet, but
not yet.
He's pretty fun to watch. I like watching him. He's a good one. And then of course they're the push they're doing on Daniel Garcia.
Mhm.
Daniel Garcia won this one, but it was by no means one-sided. But there was let's see, what's another match? Frankie Kazarian had a match against Ren Jones. Mostly kind of forgettable, to be honest. Frankie Kazarian won by submission. The only other match really that stood out to me was Nyla Jones and it was Sky Blue. And I mean, it was kind of, they built this up a little bit with Sky Blue. She's kind of pretty new in AEW. She had some matches and she ended up in the Battle Royale, Casino Battle Royale, and then she had this match which she, not surprisingly, she lost to Nyla. But I'm just, it stood out to me because it's interesting to see what AEW is doing with new, lack of a better way to put it, unknown talent. Putting them up against their former champions. In this case, Nyla Rose, and it was just an interesting match as far as how AEW structures their new talent.
Dark and Dark Elevation, they almost are the NXT of AEW. It gets a lot of new younger talent, some screen time, and some experience with a little bit more well-known wrestlers. It also gives those wrestlers some wins under their belt because the rankings actually do matter somewhat in AEW. So
yeah,
it's a useful show to have.
Yep. And the next was just the I guess you just call it the regular dark match, which I'm pretty sure this was the very first taping at Universal Studios.
Oh, was it?
This was the first one where they did not. This wasn't a match that took place before or after Dynamite. Elevation, they're still doing that, but Dark is actually taped in a studio. So there was
It's the Universal Studios a lot where Impact used to film as well. Yeah. Or no, not was it Impact? WCW. I think it was
WCW. But yeah, this was interesting to see them as just a different feel because you're kind of used to that big crowd. But Layla Hirsch had a match against Kylan King that was pretty good. And then I think probably the match of that episode was Best Friends with Orange Cassidy versus Hybrid 2 and a guy named Jorah Joel. I was a name I'd never heard of before, and he came out, and I don't recognize him from anywhere. But that was a good, entertaining match. I mean, anytime you get Orange Cassidy involved, it's going to be an entertaining match, and it was a good one. And of course, not surprisingly, at least to me, the Best Friends won over on that one. So yeah, I mean, if you're interested in seeing some of the, like I said, the unknowns and some of the new talent, these two Dark shows are definitely worth checking out. And you can watch those for free. They're both aired on YouTube. There's not like any subscription or anything that you have to do to watch those. So it's just a matter of getting up on YouTube and watching it. So good stuff. So Dynamite on Wednesday. This was a really good show.
Yeah, it was just one of those, just a solid, enjoyable show from top to bottom. There weren't any wild out of left field, new things that happened. Well, I mean, we set up some matches for next week's Dynamite, which are quite big matches, but
lead us into the Grand Slam, which I'm really looking forward to. There's some, man, that is, the more I hear about Grand Slam, the more it looks like it's a pay-per-view quality card.
Yeah.
But this week's Dynamite, coming right out of the gate, started us with Adam Cole's in-ring debut in AEW. And he, of course, had a match against Frankie Kazarian. And great first match.
Yeah. Oh, it was like the perfect match back. His history with Frankie Kazarian kind of played into the story of the match. But it was just like the right type of match we needed to see from Adam Cole as his first entry in AEW. It was a nice, fast-paced, enjoyable, technical. Teased some really good stuff in there. Like he did he teased up tuning up the band for the Sweet Chin music there.
Yeah.
Little nods to Shawn Michaels. And man, the more I see Adam Cole in AEW, the happier I am he went there, and how I see him being AEW champion within the next year, 2 years, maybe, depending on what storylines.
I mean, he's good. He's really good. And just, the more I watch him and how he has progressed as a wrestler, it's just he's gotten better and better.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's good to see his debut. Then we got a promo by Christian Cage, where he was talking about Adam Cole, and he kind of throwing shade at him, talking about how he was pulled out of development by his friends at AEW, and so it was a pretty fun promo that Christian Cage did. We had a really good tag match between FTR and Dante Martin and Matt Sydal. And that was another really good match.
Yeah, that was. I love an FTR match. I think it's safe to assume that the injury angle was more of just an angle. I mean, I imagine he really was injured, but as far as the permanent damage there, it looks like they're still able to compete there. So
yeah, it's good to see them. I mean, once they got called up out of NXT when they were with WWE, it just seems like they were like injury. Like every time you turned around, one of them got hurt, and it was just like kind of disappointing.
Yeah,
because they were really fun to watch in NXT, and then when they came out on the main roster, and when you got to see them, it was a good match.
Yeah, I think the one time I saw them live was like an NXT house show, and it was the last NXT house show. And at that point, it was when one of them had broken their jaw.
Yeah,
I think that's what had happened. So like even he couldn't be in like the last match on that card, that tour.
Yeah. So after that, we got Malachi Black coming out.
Oh,
and he was doing his thing, and then he was kind of interrupted by a face that I don't think anybody expected to see. Any Star Wars fans out there know her as she played Ahsoka Tano in the Mandalorian show, but Rosario Dawson came out, and she had a Nightmare Family shirt on, and then all of a sudden Cody shows up. So we get Cody back, and Miss Dawson jumps on Malachi Black, and then after that, kind of a fight ensues up into the stands between Malachi and Cody, and then kind of not fizzled, but just kind of went into commercial. They had the fight, and that's a good setup for what's to come.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting Cody and Malachi Black again.
Yeah.
I'm very curious what that match is going to look like.
Yeah.
Let's
see what happens.
I would like to see Malachi Black continue a winning streak because I think it's more valuable to the company to build him up than it is to let Cody have a win back. But
I agree. Another promo came up after that. It was our favorite Dan Lambert. He just annoys the crap out of me. He's doing his normal, AEW sucks and AEW fans suck, and this is normal Dan Lambert promo, and then he was interrupted by none other than Chris Jericho, and I mean, I gotta say, I was glad to finally see somebody come out and shut him up.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Dan Lambert segments.
Me neither.
I don't think it's accomplishing what they think it does.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be kind of a takeoff of the Jim Cornette or like the hardcore WWE defending fan. But I don't know that this audience even cares about that, really. Like, he just kind of runs his mouth a lot. He brings out MMA people who I don't watch MMA, so I don't know who those people are.
Yeah.
And honestly, Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky don't need someone to talk for them.
No, I find that a little odd.
Right.
Because Scorpio Sky was, he was. Were they not the first tag team champions when he was with SoCal Uncensored? Yeah, and he had decent mic skills. I don't understand what they're doing. I don't understand why they put him together with Dan Lambert. Ethan Page, I remember him from Impact and being in the North. So when I first saw him on AEW, I was like, oh, isn't that the guy from Impact? And to see him not in the North was kind of odd. But this is a really odd team up to me. Not only an odd team up with Scorpio Sky, but just this team up with Lambert. It's just an odd dynamic.
Yeah, I don't love it. I do think we might get a good match now if the men of the year take on Jericho and Jake Hager.
Yeah.
But I would like to get them away. I assume it's just to get them on TV and give them something to do, because they want to make sure that they're seen. Because they're excellent individual wrestlers, as well as tag team specialists as well too. So
I got to believe that Tony Khan has something in mind. There
has to be a payoff here. My personal theory, honestly, though, is that Jake Hager is going to turn on Jericho and join Dan Lambert's top team. That's my current theory.
That would not surprise me. Although I hope they don't go that whole "We the People" route with that team.
Yeah, I think they'll avoid that.
That was horrible. But after that, we had during this episode of Dynamite, CM Punk was on commentary, and he got confronted by Taz, and then he was basically assaulted by Powerhouse Hobbs and Hook, and kind of furthering the setup for his match against Hobbs. But yeah, they put him through the announce table, and that was something else.
Yeah, I guess it's the first time we've seen CM Punk get kind of manhandled like this, so it definitely helps put over Will Hobbs. I think. I hope that match is good because we're leading to Powerhouse Hobbs versus CM Punk, and it's interesting to see that that's the first match out of Team Taz, but I hope it leads to a Ricky Starks match. I think that'd be really good.
Yeah, I just really thought that this whole angle between CM Punk and Team Taz was just kind of odd.
Yeah, doesn't seem like the logical next step for him.
Yeah.
But I guess, too, at the same time, he does want to help get over younger and newer talent.
Yeah.
So, and it's a TV program. So, maybe save some of the big marquee matches for, pay-per-views going forward.
Yeah, we got Full Gear coming up in November. So
yeah,
there's going to be something big going on. Hopefully there's a payoff here.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, we've got the next match that came up was Darby Allin and Shawn Spears. We had a conversation, I think, earlier this week about kind of the differences in creative processes. Because I had mentioned that as Ty Dillinger, I never liked him. I was not a fan of him. But as Shawn Spears here in AEW, I've grown on that character.
Yeah, I enjoyed him in NXT, but he didn't feel like he was doing his best work there. Like the 10 stuff was pretty good. I think honestly, just the 10 aspect got over more than he did.
Yeah.
And then him appearing at the Royal Rumble at number 10 was just perfect. That was the culmination of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
but overall, it just wasn't interesting to me.
Right. He didn't do much there. So when he came into AEW and, he immediately made a name by attacking Cody and earning the nickname the Chairman.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be a bigger deal. And then again, he got lost a little bit in the shuffle.
I think they're going to probably start pushing him some more.
Putting him in the Pinnacle was a brilliant move. Pairing him with Tully was really good. This was a good showing for him. I think this is probably one of his better showings lately.
It was a good match.
Yeah.
This was Sean was actually the person who gave Darby his first defeat back in the day, when AEW first kind of got off the ground. And so this was kind of almost a revenge match or a rematch of sorts, but it was a good match, and Darby wins. But then the repercussions of this match, this was when at some point during the match, Sean had wiped Darby's face paint off, and then when Sting came in after the match, because they attacked Darby, and then Sting came in and I don't remember who it was, but I think it may have been Tully. I could be wrong though. That they took off Sting's face paint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was after he got Spike Pile Drive by FTR.
Yeah.
I guess
this is setting up another good match for the Grand Slam. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah. Hopefully it does not lead to Tully versus Sting.
I have no desire to see that one.
I love both those guys, but let somebody else have that match.
Yeah. And then the next match was it was good, but it was kind of short. Another tag match. It was between John Moxley and Eddie Kingston versus 2.0. It was fun and good match, but like I said, it was slow. I'm kind of liking this Moxley Kingston team up.
Yeah, they're a good pairing there. They work really well together. 2.0 in the main event yet again. They really see a lot in these guys.
But really, the most interesting thing to come out of this match was not even the match itself, but the aftermath of this match. After the match was over, Suzuki and Lance Archer come out, and these guys basically start pounding on each other, and that closes out the show.
Yes, the Suzuki incident has been resolved. Suzuki's music got to play all the way through, and then we had a nice fun beatdown.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest news, though, that came out of this episode of Dynamite was setting up for next week's Grand Slam, which is Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega in a non-title match.
Yeah.
Which
I'm really looking forward to that match.
I hope that match gets all the time in the world, which might be difficult because that's already a fairly stacked card. So
yeah, it's gonna be huge.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very special episode of Dynamite.
Yeah. So that brings us to Rampage. There were only 3 matches, which I think was kind of the standard.
Yeah.
Of this. This is probably only like the 3rd or 4th Rampage I've watched. Maybe less than that. No, that 4 probably sounds right. But coming out of the gate, we get Lucha Brothers versus the Butcher and the Blade for the AEW Tag Team Championship. It was a good match. Due to the fact that the Lucha Brothers were involved, I think my expectations were a little bit high. I thought it would be a lot better than it was. And we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but I really think a lot of it has to do with the fact that while not a slam on them, I really don't think Butcher and Blade are on the same level
as the Lucha Brothers.
Right. And just, it seems like a really odd matchup to me.
I think that's fair. The Butcher is not that experienced as well. I think he's on the newer side of wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, he's from the band Every Time I Die. So that's kind of his like primary thing, but he got into wrestling a few years back, and the Blade I think has a lot more experience, but it's a different style that I don't think it's as complimentary to the Lucha Brothers high speed, fast paced matches. There were some neat things in the match, like of course the Lucha Brothers looked amazing, and like they always do.
Oh yeah,
I really enjoyed the spot at the end of the match where Penta's mask was tied to the ring post, and he had to like take it off completely and covering his face to save his brother. But
right,
yeah, overall it could have been a better match, I guess. But I think it's probably my favorite match on Rampage.
I'd have to go with that. Yeah, you're probably right. The next one was Anna Jay versus the Bunny. A decent match.
Yeah, Allie, the Bunny, for someone who's been wrestling as long as she has, I feel like she's hit a ceiling as far as like her skill. I don't know if that's just not enough reps in the ring, but
yeah, I felt like there were a couple of sloppy moments.
I think her value really just comes as a character more than a wrestler for AEW. Anna Jay's good. She's on the younger side too, so she's definitely improving too from when she first appeared in AEW. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah. I mean, I was glad to see Anna Jay get the win.
Yeah.
Then of course she got attacked by Penelope Ford, who came out and knocked both of them out. Well, I say both, because as soon as she got involved, Ty Conti came out, and Penelope Ford pulled out a pair of brass knuckles and knocked them both out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Bunny is better as a character than a wrestler. Hopefully they'll try to develop her some more. Maybe I don't know. Last match of the night was a TNT Championship match between Miro and Fuego del Sol. And this was a special match in that if Fuego del Sol lost, he was going to lose his brand new car. And Miro, Miro ended up winning the match, but he seemed like he was on defense most of the match. Because Fuego del Sol really had him. He had to work to win this match.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the deal with Fuego del Sol is. I want to say it has to do with the not AEW content that he's been contributing. I'm not sure if it's BTE or if it's something else. But he did actually impress me in this match. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the, it's the David and Goliath story set up.
Yeah.
Doing everything he could to, put some offense on Miro. Miro sold a lot for him. I heard someone say this week that Miro has a unique way of selling where he makes his opponent look good, but also avoids making himself look weak.
Right.
So while he was on the defense a lot, it looked like he was more like annoyed and just kind of surprised at points in the match.
Yeah.
Fuego looked good. This is probably the best I've seen him. But I also haven't watched a lot of his matches. The big takeaway from this is that it looks like we're moving into a Sammy Guevara angle with Miro.
Yep.
My biggest disappointment with this match is we didn't get to see Miro smash the car.
Yeah. and he didn't even take the car. He put the keys in Fuego's mouth.
Yeah.
And so he didn't even. I don't even think he gets the car because he didn't. Obviously he didn't want it, but it would have been fun to see him destroy the car.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't do anything with that car, but maybe they'll do something next week. We'll see.
Maybe. Okay, we'll see. I don't know. Next week is Grand Slam. We probably ain't gonna have a whole lot of. I don't know. We'll see. Grand Slam's looking to be pretty interesting. We got some really good matches set for Grand Slam. Let's see if I can find a lineup. I know a few of them, but I want to.
Not only is their Grand Slam, but we're also getting a 2-hour Rampage as well.
Yeah,
on Friday, also from the Arthur Ashe. I think what they're doing is they're filming it all one night, since they've moved Dark and Elevation to the Universal Studios.
Yeah.
So
we've got a non-title match. This is Dynamite. We've got a non-title match of Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson. So really looking forward to that one. We've got a title match for the Women's Championship between Ruby Soho and Britt Baker.
I can't believe we completely forgot.
Yeah.
Ruby and Britt had an amazing back and forth promo on Rampage.
They did. I forgot about that on Rampage. Yes, you are correct. They had a great back and forth going. That was amazing.
It was really cool because it definitely, we got to see a little bit more of Ruby's mic skills because she talked a little in the WWE, but she didn't really get to show off. And she just had this excellent fiery babyface promo, and it's nice to have someone else who can talk in the AEW women's division because Britt is so good at that.
Yeah.
That she's needed someone to go wits to wits with.
Yeah. That was a fun promo. We've got that championship match coming up there. Also on Dynamite is the long-awaited Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black. And then we've got the tag match that we kind of alluded to earlier. It was FTR versus Sting and Darby Allin. And then we've got MJF versus Brian Pillman Jr. That should be pretty interesting. And then next week, the Grand Slam for Rampage. We've got Adam Cole and the Young Bucks taking on Christian Cage and Jurassic Express. That should be a good one. CM Punk versus Powerhouse Hobbs. And then Men of the Year versus Chris Jericho and Jake Hager. And that is it. That is your Grand Slam lineup for this upcoming week?
I believe there's a Lance Archer, Minoru Suzuki versus Moxley and Kingston match in there somewhere.
They're not. Was two. I didn't see it in the lineup card.
I think they haven't figured out where they're putting it yet. I think they're waiting to see what time goes over.
Yeah, you want to give that match a good.
Yeah.
Good time. Yeah. It's going to be a packed match. It's definitely pay-per-view quality.
Oh yeah.
So that's it for highlights, and that brings us to today's or this week's top 5 list. We are doing top 5 active female wrestlers. So, why don't you go ahead and start things off with your number 5?
Sure. So, I wanted to mention Kairi Sane, but we kind of discussed it and decided that she doesn't necessarily count as an active wrestler, considering she left the WWE last year and has yet to appear anywhere wrestling. And she's done some stuff for the WWE in Japan, so I'm not entirely sure. She may not be done with that company, but
maybe.
So I wanted to go with someone who she's kind of a polarizing figure at this point in WWE, but I'm going to pick Charlotte Flair.
Okay.
So booking aside, and the way she has been booked as strong as she has, I did want to talk about how good she just is in general. I mean, she is the daughter of Ric Flair, who is not a name that anyone wants to really be talking about right now, but that skill and that talent did pass down generationally. Her feud with Sasha Banks was one of the feuds that got me into watching WWE again. This is when she was paired up with Dana Brooke. I thought that was an enjoyable little duo there. She's just phenomenally talented in the ring. She's someone who's already had a ton of championship reigns. She's booked a little strong, and her character is kind of odd. They want to book her as a babyface way more than she should be, because she definitely works better as a heel, but she's too good. She's too good to ignore. I think she'll probably stay in the WWE for a very long time. They treat her very well over there.
Surprise me.
I don't see her leaving. If she ever leaves, it'll be purely maybe to follow Andrade, but I don't know if that'll ever happen either. She's got a good thing going over there.
Yeah. So my number 5, I went back and forth on this one. I had a number 5 in mind, but for one reason, I felt that it probably wasn't a good idea to include her on the list. But then I also remembered that she isn't really active per se right now, so we'll just keep her name out of it. So going through a bunch of rosters and how, there's a lot of really good female wrestlers out there now, and so narrowing it down, it was kind of rough. But just right before we started recording, I decided that my number 5 is going to be Ruby Soho. I like her entrance music, and I really like her mic skills, and I like she's been in AEW for such a short time, but I like what she's doing, and I put her on my as my number 5 because I'm just really interested in seeing how she progresses in AEW, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching her.
Yeah, she was on my maybe list too. Yeah, I definitely considered her.
Yeah.
My number 4. I'm going to go with the man, Becky Lynch.
Okay.
So, Becky Lynch was the last thing that was holding me on to the WWE at the beginning of the pandemic. I was already unhappy with Saudi Arabia stuff. They went into those cold, silent studio, shows with no audience, no noise.
Mm-hmm.
and I was not watching anything that happened on Raw with the exception of if there was a Becky Lynch segment.
Yeah.
So, and then she announced she was pregnant and stepped away, and then I was like, well, then I have no reason to continue watching this show.
Understand.
Becky Lynch, that turn, she was originally going to be a heel. The audience was too much behind her, so she turned into this Stone Cold-esque figure, the Man, and just was the best part of WWE programming for a better part of a year and a half. The storytelling, that Survivor Series skirmish where she busted her nose open, that was like a turning point for a lot of people.
The whole
Rumble
costume was really cool too.
The Rumble where she lost the championship to Asuka, I think that's who that was, and then took someone else's spot in the Rumble to win the Rumble and then get her shot back at the championship. That Mania match was with Ronda Rousey and Charlotte. Excellent. She's just she was already an amazing wrestler, and then she got to turn that character up, and she's back now. She's a heel, unfortunately, but no one wants her to be a heel. But I think she does. So she may be the one thing that gets me to come back to WWE main roster product, but we'll wait and see on that one.
Another one I don't see leaving anytime soon.
No.
Yeah. My number 4 is actually somebody you just mentioned, and that is Asuka. I don't know what she did prior to NXT, but I really enjoyed her NXT run. I was really happy to see her on the main roster and what they did with her. And watching her wrestle was just a lot of fun. She's a lot of fun to watch.
Well, I'll go ahead and piggyback off that because Asuka was also on my list. We haven't had this happen yet where we pick the same people, but I mean, when they're as good as they are, Asuka, like her NXT run where she was undefeated, was brilliant. It was so good. And then even when she appeared on the main roster, she got to keep that streak for a little bit longer. Charlotte, unfortunately, ended that.
I don't think they should have ended the streak that quickly.
Not as soon as they did. Luckily, she did get a lot of television time going forward, too. She's one of the few that Vince McMahon actually kind of took to. I honestly don't know what she's doing currently with the WWE. I have not.
I think she's just had some surgery and she's recuperating.
Okay. I thought it had been quiet on that front as far as like.
Yeah, hadn't heard. She's not in. Well, she is inactive, but she's inactive because she is recuperating from some kind of surgery.
Inactive, not by choice.
Right. So was she your number 3?
Yeah, I put her there at number 3.
Okay. Well, my number 3 was your number 4. Becky Lynch is on my list too, and I don't have much more to say about her. But I will parrot the fact that you said that she was just a really good wrestler. And as far as I am concerned, now again, this is based off of having not watched WWE in a really long time, but when I was watching it, she, as far as technical ability as a wrestler, she was head and shoulders above all of them. Mm-hmm. She was just good, and she was awesome. But yeah, I could totally see how you said that she was the last thing that kept you watching WWE, and after she left, there was no point. And that brings us to number 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Thunder Rosa. Did you?
Okay, that's a good one. That is a good one.
Thunder Rosa. Kind of when she first showed up in AEW, I was already familiar with her because she had done some NWA stuff that I was watching. and she was really good there. And I was like, man, she's really, really good. I think she was the NWA Women's Champion when she started appearing.
Yeah.
In AEW.
Yeah.
And then her feud with Britt Baker was excellent. I think it was a match. Did she have a match with Serena Deeb that was incredible? I want to say.
Yeah.
She is so good.
Oh yeah. She's amazing.
I hope she is the one who takes Britt's championship from her. I don't want Britt to lose anytime soon, but I want Thunder Rosa to be the one to do it. She's cool as a character, just as a person, because she's even started her own wrestling company called Mission Pro Wrestling, I believe.
Yeah.
And she's got the perfect combination of a good look combined with amazing skill and good talking, so
very good, very good. So my number 2, I'm going to say that my number 1 and my number 2, they could rotate. But in the end, I went ahead and chose as my number 2, Miss Chris Statlander.
Nice.
She's kind of new to the scene as far as, everything's concerned. But when she first appeared on AEW, it was just like, she's really interesting. And then she left for injury and then came back, and they started pushing her more. And I was really glad about that, because she's just really interesting to watch. Not only as a character, she's got this whole alien vibe going, but just watching the things she does in the ring is just really interesting. Like some of the things she does, you're just like, what the hell was that? And I'm glad that, I knew she wasn't going to win the title, but I was glad to see her get a title shot. But yeah, she is my number 2, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else she can do and how they progress her story.
All right, my number 1 favorite women wrestler. Honestly, though, she's probably in my top 5 just wrestlers overall. If I was to combine my men and women in one category, is Io Shirai.
Oh, okay.
Io Shirai made her name in Stardom. She was basically the top woman in that company. She also trained quite a few wrestlers. Her sister was involved in that company extensively, and she was so unbelievably good. When Kairi Sane came to NXT, there was a lot of talk of Io Shirai coming to NXT as well. And unfortunately, she wasn't cleared at that point. There was something wrong medically. I could not remember. Maybe a neck issue that they didn't approve her. So she had to wait a little while. And then she finally was able to appear in NXT. And she, as a babyface, works because she's just so good in the ring. But at the same time, her best work in Stardom was as a heel. And when she made that switch in NXT to being a heel, it unlocked a whole new level to that character.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe Io Shirai is one of the greatest wrestlers alive today, period.
That's cool. Cool. My number 1 was your number 2. Thunder Rosa. Like I said, I could go back and forth on my number 2 and number 1, but when it all comes down with it, Thunder Rosa is I'd have to say she's a much more interesting character than Chris when it all comes down to it. Yeah, I started watching her back in NWA, and that was she was a lot of fun even then. And then I heard she went to AEW, and I was really happy about that. But yeah, so that's my number one. And you remember what next week's number 5 or top 5 is going to be? I can't make. Was it active tag teams?
I was gonna say, are we gonna do tag team?
I think we were going to do active tag teams. Yeah,
That's a little harder because there's
a lot of them out there.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm gonna have to dig hard because that's a tough one. So
yeah. Oh, it's gonna be a rough one.
Yeah. But I'm excited.
Cool. Well, that's it for the show this week, and next week we will be talking probably mostly about Grand Slam.
Yeah, I'll try and watch a little G1 this week. I know there's Hiroshi Tanahashi just faced off against Kazuchika Okada, and that's supposed to be an excellent match. So I will definitely be watching that, and then whatever else happens this week. Yeah, right. But yeah, Grand Slam probably heavy next week.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening today, and hope to see you again next week. And like I said, check us out on the Twitters, Around the Ring, okay, and hang out with us, and have a good week. Later.
Goodbye.